Let's introduce our next performer. Our next performer is a San Francisco-based writer and producer of the aforementioned Beyond Borders storytelling. She could ride Muni across town with her eyes closed, and like many of us, she often does. Everybody put your hands together for Justina. Woo!
I come from a place that doesn't do public transportation. In Houston, Texas, we have buses, but people love their cars. Cars are an air-conditioned way to go from your air-conditioned house to your air-conditioned office to your air-conditioned megachurch. Now, in the 80s, cars, according to the news, cars were also a way to stay safe from all the crime lurking outside of your door. We would hear on TV, we'd get advice about things like, if you're waiting in traffic, be sure to leave between 6 and 8 feet between you and the car in front of you in case somebody tries to carjack you. Then you have an escape route. Or, when you're walking in a parking garage, put your keys between your hands like this, sticking out, right? So if somebody tries to rob you, you can jab them in the eye. And then before you get into your car, be sure to look underneath, under there, just in case someone's hiding there with a knife, waiting to cut your Achilles tendon. So when I went off to college in Chicago, I didn't really have any street smarts because, I'd never really interacted with the world outside of my car. Now, in Chicago, I didn't have a car. I rode the L, which is their train system. And people would tell me things like, when you're riding the L, don't make eye contact with anyone, because you don't want to start any trouble. And so I didn't. And then somebody pickpocketed me. And then I got stuck in the door. And I actually never really felt that comfortable walking around the city because I wasn't in the safety of a car. And so I decided, I think I need some other options for getting around. So I ended up buying a bike. Yeah. But in the 90s in Chicago, there were no bike lanes. Oh, I know. So what I did was I rode my bike on the sidewalk. Yeah. Hey, man. I rode my bike on the sidewalk, and I ended up getting hit by a car. Riding on the sidewalk. Okay. So after 7 years of this, I decided, maybe it's time for a change. So in 1999, I moved to San Francisco. And San Francisco was the first time that I'd ever ridden in a public bus. And this is weird because coming from Houston, my definition of a bus wasn't something that carried people around from place to place, because in Houston, nobody rode the bus. In Houston, the bus was this rectangular object in the right lane, stopping and going and stopping and going. And your object as a driver was to avoid the bus at any cost, right? So when I started writing Muni, it finally occurred to me what a bus actually does, And I loved it. I loved that I would get on and it was full of people, and I loved that I would be at a bus stop and I'd be surrounded by all these randos who I'd never otherwise interact with. But it was great, And so I felt like writing Muni was like, it was like my way of having my finger on the pulse of the city. I'd hear what people were talking about and what they cared about, because there's always that guy that comes up to you and wants your signature for a petition about some issue, and it's like, Indian casinos or something, So you always know what's important. And so over the years writing Muni, I have seen so much, and I've talked to all these people, like so many different types of people. I once talked to this Russian babushka, and she just kept asking me, "Do you know any Chinese men?" I really want to marry a Chinese man. And one time I got a date with this guy who plays the didgeridoo in the train station. And one time I saw Matt Gonzalez writing Muni. And I thought that was so much cooler than the one time I saw Jay Leno in the back of a convertible in Chicago. But about 4 years ago, I got a smartphone. And ever since then, things haven't really been the same between Muni and me. Like, the mystery is gone, for one thing. Like, I used to do that thing, where you go, and you're like, where the hell is Muni? When is it coming? But now I always know when Muni's coming because there's an app, And the excitement of watching people and talking to people on Muni is just not there anymore because I'm more interested in seeing what people are talking about on Twitter or on Facebook or on Instagram. And to be honest, I cheat on Muni a lot with Lyft. I know. But recently, I was riding the 22. And I got on, and I sat in one of those front seats that are side-facing, And there's this old guy sitting next to me, and he's got his cane. And every once in a while, he'd lean over across the aisle and go like this. And he was whacking at something under the seat, right? And then there were these two teenage girls sitting nearby, and every time he did that, they would be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, don't, stop. And then other people would say things like, it's dead, man, it's dead. Or somebody would be like, leave it alone, just leave it alone. And so I had to look under the seat to see what this thing was, and what it was this little brown ball of feathers. It was this little sparrow, and it was curled up in a ball, and it was jammed into this corner. And this old man was trying to sweep it out with his cane for whatever reason. And so he would try, and then he would stop, and everyone would be calm. And then he would try, and everyone would go crazy. The girls would start screaming. People would yell at him to do different things, and they would go calm. And I didn't know why the bus driver wasn't doing anything. He didn't say a word, right? And then at one point, the man goes under there with his cane, and he gets the bird, right? And then it's sort of tumbles out a bit, and the girls go crazy, and they're like, oh my God, it's gonna fly into my head. And, and then everyone's like, stop it, leave him alone. And other people are like, no, you have to get it out, And then all of a sudden, the bus driver slams on the brakes, right? And we're we do this lurching thing. And we're at this bus stop at this point. So he throws the door open, and people start trying to get on the bus. And he's like, wait, not yet. And then he stands up, he comes out of his little driver safety area, and then he turns and he faces all of us. And he's like, let's see that bird. And we're all not saying anything. We don't know what to say, right? Suddenly, this bird shoots out from under the seat, and there's this flurry of feathers everywhere. And it's all disoriented because it's somebody's been beating it. So it comes and it's just flying in all directions, flying into the ceiling, into the window, into the floor, into the ceiling, into the window, and it's doing this from the front of the bus where we are all the way to the back like this, and then it finally ends up landing on the back window, and it stops there and it's hyperventilating. It's just terrified, and nobody moves. For 5 seconds, we're just watching it. And then all of a sudden, the bird launches itself into the air, and it flies down the middle of the bus, right? And it's flying towards the bus driver. And we're all watching this in slow motion. We're like, And the bus driver is also watching the bird come at him in slow motion. And he's like, and he catches the bird. And then he goes, right? He gets off the bus and he lets it go. And the first thing I think is, I didn't get that on my phone. But that is why they say you need to keep your eyes up and your phone down while writing Muni. Not because somebody might come and slice your Achilles tendon or mug you, but because you never know when you're gonna see some crazy Mr. Miyagi shit happen that you just can't make up. And the only thing you can do is pay attention and go around like in the old days and tell everyone about it. Thank you.